She said she was working late again. Deadlines, she claimed. But when her timesheet hit my inbox, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Oh, the hours didn't just not match. They overlapped with places she couldn't have been if she were telling the truth. I wanted to believe it was a clerical error, a glitch, anything but betrayal. But the universe doesn't make those kinds of mistakes. Not when her car was parked miles away from the office. The same night, she said, she stayed till midnight. I printed the sheet, every line whispering lies in black ink, and stared until the numbers blurred into accusations. That's when I knew. I wasn't chasing an explanation anymore. I was chasing proof. Proof that the woman I trusted with my life had already clocked out of hours. The next morning, Ethan drove to her office under the pretense of bringing her coffee. His hands were steady, but his pulse wasn't. He rehearsed his words as he watched her through the glass, laughing with her co-worker, completely at ease. She didn't look like someone harboring secrets. She looked normal. That made it worse. When she noticed him, her smile froze for a second before returning. That tiny flicker told him everything. He placed the coffee on her desk, pretending not to notice her phone screen lighting up with a name he didn't recognize. Ryan. By noon, Ethan was parked 2 blocks from her building, watching the entrance through rain-streaked glass. He didn't want to be that guy, but lies demanded witnesses. She stepped out at 12:45 with the same co-worker, their shoulders brushing as they shared an umbrella. Her phone buzzed. She smiled, then leaned in close, too close. Ethan snapped a photo, hands trembling. In that click, his marriage fractured in silence. That night, the confrontation began like small talk, soft words wrapped in ice. She denied everything, her tone calm, too calm, too calm. He showed her the photo, the timesheet, and waited for her mask to crack. It did. She simply said, "You're tired, Ethan. You're imagining things." The confidence in her voice was surgical, slicing away doubt. But the paper didn't lie. Her eyes did. When she went to bed, Ethan didn't. He sat alone, surrounded by silence and unanswered questions. The timesheet lay on the table, a confession written in hours. He opened his laptop again and traced her digital footprints. Messages, login times, location pings. Each click peeled back another layer of deceit. Outside, thunder rolled, but inside, it was the silence that screamed. Ethan didn't sleep. By morning, exhaustion had sharpened into obsession. He called in sick, pretending to have the flu, but his real illness was suspicion. He retraced Laura's so-called overtime shifts on her timesheets, cross-checking them against the company's security logs. The results hit him like a blade. The timestamps didn't just not match. They belonged to someone else's ID. Someone named Ryan Hale. The same Ryan whose name had flashed on her phone. Ethan leaned back, eyes closed, the weight of realization pressing down like lead. The truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was waiting. He needed confirmation, not coincidence. That afternoon, Ethan visited the building's front desk under the guise of checking on Laura's forgotten ID card. IT, the receptionist, a young man named Jamie, 27, nervously scrolled through the access log. "Looks like she clocked out at 10:32 p.m., Jamie said. But her ID wasn't scanned. Ryan's was. The words hit Ethan like a hammer. He thanked Jamie, keeping his voice even, but his hands trembled so hard he almost dropped his phone. That night, Ethan parked outside Ryan's apartment building, the same red sedan unmistakable in the lot. He watched from the shadows as Laura emerged from the elevator, carrying takeout, her laughter muffled through the rain. Ryan opened the door. Tall, mid-30s, confident, his hand grazing her back as he let her in. The sight hollowed Ethan out. He wanted to scream, but instead, he recorded. 6 seconds of betrayal captured forever on shaky hands. When Laura came home, she found Ethan sitting in the dark. The rain hadn't stopped, and neither had his silence. She placed her purse on the counter, pretending not to notice the way he was looking at her. as if seeing a stranger. "Did work go late again?" he asked quietly. Her response was a whisper wrapped in guilt. "It always does." The lie hung between them like smoke. He said nothing, but she knew he knew. At dawn, Ethan packed his car. He didn't know where he was going, only that he couldn't stay. On the passenger seat lay the printed timesheet, the photo, and his wedding ring. The sky was bruised with the gray of endings. As he pulled out of the driveway, he glanced back once. The house still, the curtains drawn. Inside, Laura stirred awake to an empty bed in silence that spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. Ethan didn't leave town, not yet. He parked near Laura's office again, the engine off, his mind running faster than the rain tracing lines across the windshield. The name Ryan Hale circled his thoughts like a vulture. Something about him didn't fit. The falsified timesheets weren't just personal, they were systemic, connected to other employees whose records looked too perfect. Ethan hacked into the company's cloud logs, his fingers shaking as he unearthed files labeled Overtime Protocol. Confidential. Inside, he found entries under Ryan's name. Dozens of falsified hours linked to expense accounts and dummy invoices. Laura wasn't the only one lying. She was part of something much bigger, something she might not even understand. He followed Ryan the next day, careful and deliberate. The man was composed, confident, and moved like someone who believed he owned the world. Ryan met with two executives at a downtown cafe, exchanging envelopes and polite smiles. Ethan captured every second with a camera pressed against his chest. But as he reviewed the footage later, he froze. Behind Ryan, sitting at a separate table, Laura. Her expression wasn't of guilt or affection. It was fear. Her eyes darted to Ryan's briefcase, then to the door, as if she wanted to run but couldn't. Ethan's pulse surged. Maybe she wasn't just cheating. Maybe she was trapped. Ethan's investigation deepened. He broke into Laura's company account after midnight, bypassing the weak firewall with determination, fueled by heartbreak. Dozens of files spilled open. Payroll discrepancies, falsified expense reports, and a folder titled Audit Freeze, pending. Every document bore Ryan Hale's digital signature. Laura's wasn't there. Not once. She hadn't forged her timesheets. Someone had done it for her. The realization hit like thunder. She wasn't the architect of betrayal. She was the scapegoat. Morning found him outside again, watching Laura leave for work. She looked tired, her movements slower, mechanical. When she stopped at a red light, Ethan pulled up beside her, their eyes meeting for the first time since that night. No words passed, but everything did. Suspicion, sorrow, apology, fear. Her gaze flickered toward his car's dashboard camera and then to her phone, signaling him to follow. She turned left into an empty parking lot. He followed, heart pounding. The truth was finally within reach. She confessed before he could accuse. Ryan's been laundering money through employee hours. She whispered, voice trembling. He used my login. If I reported it, he said, he'd ruin both of us. Ethan listened in silence, anger shifting into something colder, purpose. Then we expose him, he said, his voice steady for the first time in days. She looked at him, tears threatening to break the surface. You'd still help me? After everything? He nodded once. We end this together. The storm that had begun with betrayal now had a target, and a reckoning waiting in the dark. Ethan and Laura sat together for the first time in weeks, the silence between them now filled with strategy instead of blame. She explained everything. How Ryan had manipulated payroll systems, forcing employees to work overtime to cover his fake invoices, all while threatening those who questioned him. Ethan listened, jaw tight, fingers drumming against the table. Their marriage was broken, but their motives aligned. Truth. They planned their next move. copying data from Ryan's private drive, using Laura's credentials. It wasn't forgiveness that united them that night. It was shared survival. The next day, Laura walked into the office as if nothing had changed. Her hair neatly tied, her smile practiced. Ryan greeted her with his usual false charm, oblivious to the micro-camera she'd pinned beneath her collar. Ethan waited outside in his car, earpiece connected, every second stretching into an eternity. When Ryan leaned closer, whispering something only she could hear, her fingers trembled, but she didn't break. "Got it," Ethan whispered, watching the feed stream in real time. The truth was finally recording itself. Ryan's arrogance became his downfall. He spoke too freely, boasting about hours that didn't exist and money that never left the books. Ethan recorded every word from his car, heart racing. But then, Ryan's tone shifted. "Your husband's been watching you, hasn't he?" he said softly. Laura froze, her breath catching. "Tell him if he keeps digging. I'll make sure neither of you have jobs, or safety." Ethan's pulse spiked. He'd been found out. That night, Ethan's apartment door was unlocked. Inside, the place had been searched. Drawers open, files missing. His laptop was gone, and the walls felt smaller, colder, a warning. On the kitchen counter lay a note written in elegant script. "Stop before it stops you." He looked out the window, certain he saw movement in the shadows across the street. He turned off the lights, pulled the blinds, and whispered into his phone, "Laura, we're not safe anymore." Laura met Ethan in an empty parking structure just before dawn. Both looked exhausted, hunted. "He knows," Ethan said, his voice barely audible over the hum of fluorescent lights. She nodded. "Then we need to finish this before he finishes us." They exchanged a single glance, the kind only shared by people who have burned through fear and landed in resolve. Ethan plugged in a second backup drive, the one Ryan didn't know existed. As the progress bar filled, the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. Their time was running out. The sound of footsteps grew louder, sharper, until a figure emerged from the shadows. Ryan Hale, calm as ever, holding Ethan's stolen laptop. "Looking for this," he said, voice echoing against the concrete walls. Laura froze, her hand hovering over the USB drive still copying files. Ethan stepped forward, rage masking fear. "You forged her timesheets. You used her to cover your crimes." Ryan smirked. "You think you understand the game you just joined?" He tossed the laptop to the floor, shattering it. "You're not in control anymore." For a moment, the air itself felt electric. Two men standing inches apart, one fueled by greed, the other by betrayal. Ryan lunged first, grabbing Ethan by the collar, slamming him against a concrete pillar. The sound echoed through the garage. "You think you can ruin me?" Ryan hissed. Ethan fought back, landing a punch that sent blood spattering across the wall. Laura screamed, rushing between them, clutching the USB like her life depended on it. Because it did. "Stop!" she shouted. "It's over." But Ryan's eyes burned with the panic of a cornered animal. "No," he growled. "It's just beginning." Laura ran. She darted toward the stairwell, USB in hand, echoing footsteps following. Ethan stumbled after her, blood on his lip but determination blazing. Behind them, Ryan's footsteps pounded closer. They burst onto the rooftop, the first light of dawn painting the sky in pale gold. "Give it to me, Laura!" Ryan shouted. "You don't know what you're doing." She turned, tears mixing with rain, and raised the drive above her head. "No, Ryan, you don't!" She threw it to Ethan. The choice was made. The moment froze. Ryan lunged for the drive, but Ethan intercepted. They struggled near the ledge, concrete slick with rain. A slip, a shout, and then silence. Ryan's body teetered for an impossible second before gravity claimed him. The impact below was distant, final. Laura stood motionless, eyes wide, trembling. Ethan stared down over the edge, chest heaving. The USB clutched tight. "It's over," he whispered. But the words didn't feel like victory. They felt like loss. By the time the police arrived, the evidence was uploaded. Every falsified record, every audio confession. Laura's name was cleared. Ryan's empire collapsed before sunrise. But in the quiet that followed, Ethan and Laura stood apart, unable to meet each other's eyes. "Thank you," she said softly, voice breaking, "for not giving up on the truth." He nodded, but didn't speak. Some wounds don't bleed. They echo. As he walked away under the morning light, the USB drive still in his pocket, one thought followed him. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It just shows you who you really were. The following weeks blurred into interrogation rooms, legal meetings, and sleepless nights. Ethan replayed that rooftop moment over and over. Ryan's expression, Laura's scream, the hollow thud that still echoed through his dreams. The police ruled it an accident, but the truth never sat cleanly in his chest. Laura was exonerated, but her eyes carried something heavier than guilt, a kind of grief that had no name. When she finally came to see him, she didn't ask for forgiveness. She asked if he'd ever feel safe again. He didn't answer. Back home, Ethan found himself surrounded by ghosts of what used to be normal. Coffee cups still on the counter, her perfume faint on the sheets, the house too silent to feel alive. He scrolled through archived footage from that night, trying to piece together meaning where none existed. But then, buried deep in a hidden system folder on the recovered drive, he found something Ryan had left behind. Encrypted video files, each labeled with employee names. One of them was Laura's. He hesitated before clicking play. The video began with static. Then, Ryan's voice, calm, mocking. "If you're watching this, it means you think you won. You didn't. The money wasn't the secret. The people were." The camera shifted, showing Laura sitting in an office chair, pale, terrified, months before the scandal broke. "Please, Ryan, I'll fix the files," she pleaded. He leaned into frame, whispering, "You already did." Ethan froze, watching his wife's humiliation preserved as blackmail. Every lie she told him, every late night, it had been survival, not betrayal. Laura arrived the next day, eyes red from sleeplessness. Ethan didn't speak. He simply turned the screen toward her. She stared, trembling, her hand covering her mouth. "He recorded everything," she whispered. "He made me falsify others' hours. He said if I didn't, he'd destroy your career, too." Her voice cracked. Ethan wanted to hate her, but he couldn't. The truth had rewritten their story. From infidelity to coercion, we were both his victims, she said quietly. He finally looked at her, the anger gone, replaced by exhausted empathy. Weeks later, Ethan visited Ryan's grave, an unmarked plot in a quiet cemetery outside the city. The wind was sharp, the sky a pale wash of gray. He placed the USB drive on the grass, its metal surface catching the light. "You didn't win," he said softly. Behind him, Laura waited in silence, her coat fluttering in the wind. "We are done running," she whispered. Ethan nodded, unsure if she meant from Ryan or from the past itself. They walked away together, not as lovers, not as enemies, but as two people who survived the same storm. Months passed. The city moved on. Headlines faded, and the scandal became another story buried beneath fresher sins. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Ryan's presence lingered. Not as a ghost, but as a system still breathing somewhere inside the company. One evening, he received an anonymous email. "You think it ended? Check your old login." The address traced back to an internal server, one that should have been decommissioned. Against his better judgment, Ethan clicked. What loaded wasn't data, it was a live feed. A timestamp showed current time. And sitting in an office under fluorescent light was Laura. He drove to her office without thinking, rain slicing through the windshield like static. Each red light felt like a trap, every second stretching thin. When he arrived, the building was dark. No guards, no sound but the hum of electricity in the walls. He stepped inside, calling her name. His voice echoed back, hollow. Then, from the corridor, a light flickered on in a conference room. Her silhouette appeared against the glass. She turned slowly, as if expecting him. Only it wasn't Laura. It was a recorded projection, looping endlessly, her face frozen in half a smile. A voice filled the room, distorted, familiar. "You thought I died, Ethan." Ryan's voice, unmistakable, his breath caught as text scrolled across the monitor beside the projection. "Control is immortal." Files began downloading automatically. Encrypted directories labeled with corporate aliases. The system hadn't died with Ryan. It had replicated. Ryan's overtime protocol was now self-sustaining, hidden within corporate servers. Laura's old credentials had been reactivated to access it. It wasn't just corruption. It was evolution. Ethan disconnected the cables, pulling the plugs until sparks flickered and the screen went black. His breath came ragged, echoing through the empty hall. Then his phone vibrated. A message from Laura. "Don't go back there." He froze, realizing the message's timestamp came from hours earlier. She'd never been in the building tonight. Someone wanted him there, wanted him to see. In the silence that followed, the lights across the corridor flickered again, one by one, leading deeper into the server room. Inside the server room, the air hummed with mechanical rhythm. Rows of blinking machines pulsed like artificial veins. Ethan stepped closer, finding one terminal still active. A final message on the screen. "Someone has to keep the system running." Beneath the text was a live video feed, not of Ryan, but of Laura, sitting in front of a terminal, somewhere else typing lines of code. "Laura?" he whispered. She turned toward the camera, her face unreadable, eyes hollow. "It's bigger than us, Ethan," she said. "We can't stop it." The screen went dark. For the first time, Ethan realized Ryan didn't need to survive. His control already had.